And the forever process of inviting. Okay, that should do it for that. Alright, feel free to hit share on this so that people can see it. It is always, as always, it is set to public so that we can share cooking with everybody. Yay! So for today, we are going to do chicken broccoli Alfredo, and we are going to do it from scratch, because it is infinitely better to do this sort of thing from scratch than it is to use a jar. Jars suck. So I'm just going to give it another minute or two for people to come in, and then I'm going to get started. So, one moment, please. Okay, let's go through our ingredient list and then we'll get started. So, you will need chicken. Purdue chicken breasts were buy one, get one free. So that's why it's that. But you can use chicken, the tenders. You can use chicken breasts. I find that for something like this, either the tenderloins or the chicken breasts work best, and I'm going to go over the knife techniques with that. You're going to need your pasta of choice. Traditionally, you use fettuccine on something like this. I forgot to pick up long pasta because I don't usually keep that in the house, so we're going to use cavatappi just because I can. Because I like that particular cut of pasta, and that's what we're going to use. You're going to need Parmesan cheese, one decent-sized bag. I think this is, how many ounces is this? That's a good question. So this is 0.62 pounds. So this is the average size of a Stop & Shop bag of Parmesan cheese. You're going to need pretty much a whole bag. You're going to need all-purpose flour. And you're going to need heavy whipping cream. This... if you don't want to use heavy cream, if you're looking to count calories, you can use milk in place of this, and that's perfectly acceptable. Don't go to anything less than 2% milk for cooking, as I've said in my other videos. Less than 2%, and the fat content isn't enough for it to act as a thickening and binding agent in a lot of recipes, so just be wary there. Skim milk and 1% are not for cooking, they're for drinking. But we're going to use heavy cream because fuck my aorta. And I'm going with broccoli and cauliflower mix because I actually enjoy it. But you can use just regular old frozen broccoli, either the auto steam in the bag or boiled variety. Either is fine. I go with frozen veggies because they're dirt cheap. And I am super cheap. So, okay. Special thanks to Rachel Durfee who mailed me a stand, an adjustable little tripod for my smartphone. Hopefully the angles on this is going to be much better. So let's jump right into it, okay? For pans and cookware, you're going to need a medium saucepan. You're going to need a decent-sized pot or Dutch oven. And if you've got it, you're going to need either a grill plate, and if you don't have that, you're going to need a large frying pan. I'm going to use my grill plate, but I'll get to that part when we get to getting the chicken started. First things first, let's get the water started for our pasta, because that's going to take a little bit of time to boil. Now, that said, the exact amount of water is not really relevant. You're just making pasta, so for those of you who have never made pasta before, which, yeesh, I hope that's not the case, if you've never made pasta before, or if you're looking for a tip on the pasta, you're just looking for enough water to make sure that the pasta is completely submerged. There shouldn't be any pasta sticking out of the top of the water like little islands. The pasta should be completely submerged, and it should be enough water so that even though it's going to evaporate a little bit as it boils, that it's going to remain completely submerged. That's all you're really looking for. I do salt the water. I do not bother oiling the water, and here's why, so I'm glad you brought that up. You're going to salt the water for taste because you need to, and it's also going to, salt in the water is also going to help limit the interaction of the starches. So pasta, when it hits the water and as it's cooking, this free starch in the water is what makes pasta all clumpy. Putting salt in the water not only helps with the taste, but it also helps actually neutralize some of that. It also helps neutralize some of that free starch and helps prevent your pasta from sticking together. Now that said, there's no point to putting olive oil in the water. Now I don't know how that trend started for doing cooking, but here's the thing. Oil and water do not mix. They don't. You can't dissolve oil in water. It won't do it. So all you're doing is putting oil in the water that's just going to sit on the surface. And yeah, as the water agitates, as it boils, it'll mix in, but it does not dissolve. So all you're doing is creating a film of oil. And when you take the pasta out of the water, all you're doing is coating the pasta in oil, which is pointless unless you're making oil and butter pasta. Otherwise, if you're putting any other kind of sauce on there, you're just coating the pasta in oil for no reason. As a matter of fact, you're actually going to diminish the way that your sauce sticks to the pasta by doing that. So no, I do not oil the pasta water because there's no point in chemistry for that. However, we are going to salt it. Now, I generally go with just something like that. Just it's not a measurement amount. You salt the water to taste. It's a personal preference thing. Okay. So next up, let's get our chicken going because that's the next longest thing that's going to have to happen. Let's see if I can adjust the angle on this new stand. There we go. Now, we're going to work with whole chicken breasts. And as you've seen, oh, and just a reminder for anyone who's seen my videos before, underneath my cutting board is, as always, a bit of paper towel. Prevents the cutting board from sliding, helps prevent accidents. Now, I live alone, so 2 chicken breasts is probably way the fuck more than I need. But that's what comes in a package, and they were buy one, get one free, so that's what we're going to use. And I left my good knives in their case in my car from the last party I was at, so we're going to use a shitty knife today, but that's just because that's what I've got right now. So the only thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim. These are chicken breasts with rib meat, and when you find those, we're just going to trim. We're just going to, that's all fat. We don't need that. This recipe is calorie heavy as it is. So if you just see any egregious little bits of fat, we're just going to cut those off. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is a technique called butterflying. So what we're going to do is you're going to take your chicken breast, right? You're going to put it on its side, just like this, okay? You're going to use your knife halfway through, okay, the width of the chicken breast, and you're going to press, and you don't have to start at the top. You don't have to go all the way down, because that's a really good way to slip and cut your hands. So you're going to do is right in the middle of the chicken breast, right in the middle. We're going to cut straight in, and pull down. And we're going to turn it, continue our cut to the other side, always cutting away from our hands. Now what I've done, and this is why it's called butterflying, is because now I have a meaty chicken butterfly. See? Now the reason we're butterflying these chicken breasts is just so that they don't take a year and a day to grill. Again, same thing. And that's it. So that's how we butterfly a chicken breast. So that gives us 4 pieces of chicken breast. Now, obviously, if you're working with chicken tenderloins, you don't need to do this because they're already kind of bite-sized. And for that, you just skip that step. Okay. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to the oven and get the grill plate started. The instructions for this are the same, whether we are doing the grill plate or using a frying pan. It's the same either way. You're going to see me use a grill plate, but because I happen to have one. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Sorry, still getting used to the new, nice, fancy holding case for this. Haven't 100% learned how to manipulate it exactly the way I want yet. Oh, yeah, see, that's top heavy. I didn't break nothing. It's just, at some point I'm going to have all these burners going, and I want to make sure that I don't set the nice new stand on fire. Okay, good. That's a good target. So you guys should be able to see what I'm doing there. Yeah, you guys can see it fine. The comments for the video are actually in the feed of right where I'm going to have the chicken, and it's kind of throwing me off visually, but okay. So I'm going to put that on medium heat. I'm going to give it a liberal spraying of just sprayable canola oil, just for anti-stick purposes. Okay. Now we're just going to season the chicken lightly, because it's going to be going in with an Alfredo sauce, so we don't want the seasoning of the chicken to necessarily overpower our nice creamy cheese sauce. But at the same time, bland chicken is one of the worst sins on the face of this planet. So, a little salt. Just right on there. If you're in a frying pan, it's just the same. Little black pepper. Little garlic powder. Okay, a lot of garlic powder because, you know, it's me and garlic. And a little onion powder. Okay. So our chicken is just going to sit there and cook for a bit. So we're going to move on to the next step while that's doing its thing. Now, as with all the other dishes you've seen me do with chicken before, we want to make sure that the chicken is cooked all the way through. It should be white all the way through. Obviously, undercooked chicken is super bad for you. That picture that was going around Facebook, no, there is no such thing as medium rare chicken. Holy shit. That is not a thing that exists. But we're going to let the chicken just go ahead and grill and do its thing. Pasta, on the other hand. Water's boiling, so we're just going to go ahead and dump the pasta in. I'm not really measuring it. I'm going to go with half the box, so it's about half a pound of uncooked pasta. I'm going to have extra chicken, so... And a word on the spices. Now, I like to use those 4, particularly with chicken. I also use the exact same 4 spices for steak. Onion powder, garlic powder, salt, pepper. They're kind of like your basic seasoning mix. Now, here's the thing. If you don't like one of those, don't use it. Seasonings are about what you like. It's always to taste. So feel free to experiment. Sometimes, in something like this, I'll throw a couple of shakes of chili powder on, just because I like the extra flavor. I like the kick. So, there. You know what? I changed it up. Why not? You don't want to go crazy with the spices, because it will overpower the flavor of the Alfredo. But that doesn't mean that you can't, experiment and have fun with it. Alright, so when you put your pasta in the water, make sure you do give it a stir, just to make sure that that pasta breaks up and doesn't get a chance to stick together. Okay, for cavatappi, I'm going to start a timer for about 8 minutes. Now, pasta. Believe it or not, somehow this is the first of my shows that we're doing a straight up pasta dish. Considering how much pasta I eat, that's actually saying something. So here's the thing. You're going to find several cooking instructions on the back of your box of pasta. Al dente, firm, and tender. Okay? Purists will tell you that you have to serve your pasta al dente. Okay? Here's the thing. Cook your pasta however you damn well want. Okay? I'll let you in on a secret. Most of the time, I'll actually cook my pasta to firm in between al dente and tender. Tender is kind of softer. Now, if you overcook pasta, it will turn to mush, so you don't want to do that. You don't want to go any further than the time on the box says for tender. But that said, al dente is a purist thing. It's a very firm pasta. You know, it's a matter of taste. If you don't like al dente pasta, then just leave it in the water for another minute. It'll soften up a little bit, and then go with that. It's truly a matter of preference. And I'm a stickler for procedure when it comes to cooking, and even I'm willing to let that slide. It all depends on taste. So, that's going to do its thing. We're going to start talking about how to do our sauce while our chicken continues to become chicken. Yeah, mushy pasta is a textural nightmare. I completely agree. I'm not talking about... Tender pasta is not mushy pasta. That's like 2 or 3 minutes over that time. The pasta breaks down and turns to glue, much like if you over whip mashed potatoes. So we're not talking about that. No, I do not rinse the pasta. And the reason I do not rinse the pasta is because why did I salt the water to flavor the pasta if I am then going to wash all of that off of it? Now, the reason some people rinse pasta is because the cold water stops any possible cooking action, but the thing is, I'm not going to let the pasta sit long enough for that to be a problem. Okay. So let's talk about some fundamentals here. Alfredo is basically white sauce plus Parmesan cheese. Now, a white sauce, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation on this because it's French, and I don't speak a friggin' word of French. I believe it's a bechamel. I can't pronounce shit that I've only ever read. White sauce is just a basic sauce. It's also called a mother sauce. The reason it's called a mother sauce is because it is the base for a ton of other sauces. Alright, well, you're Canadian. You tell me how to say it. Bechamel. Okay, there we go. I can't fucking pronounce French. Look, what do you want from me? Alright, yeah, bechamel. Also known as a white sauce. It is called a mother sauce because you make it and then... Yes, I know you just did. Thank you. I appreciate it. You use it to make a ton of other sauces. You can also use it to make your own creamed vegetables. So you ever wanted to make creamed spinach? White sauce plus spinach. You ever wanted to make creamed broccoli? White sauce plus broccoli. You're noticing the trend here. This opens up a world of stuff that you can make for yourself. Just keeping an eye on that chicken. Okay, time to flip the chicken. One moment. Now this would have been a little bit easier if I had spread them out down the whole length of the grill, but lengthwise instead of widthwise, but I didn't want the flames on next to my new stand with my phone, so we're keeping the side off so that I have a place to put the camera. Yes, you're right. I am not flipping the chicken multiple times. You are absolutely right about that. So if you'd seen any of my other videos, particularly about frying things and grilling things, the secret to most of these things is you don't want to mess with it a lot. Flipping the chicken constantly promotes liquid falling out of the chicken. So it dries it out. It also causes multiple contact points, which wipes off the no-stick oil that I sprayed on there, which, as Melissa said, causes the chicken to stick more. So you're really only going to flip the chicken once. So you get it cooked at least about halfway through on one side, you flip it, and apparently my smoke detector is not a fan of my cooking. Oh, bloody hell. One moment. It's not even smoky in here. It's like the damn thing knows I'm trying to cook. Alright. Since I'm doing 100 things at once, I'm just turning the chicken down to medium-low instead of medium, just to give myself a little bit more time. Okay, so, white sauce, mother sauce. Use it to make a whole bunch of other things, such as creamed vegetables. I like to add a lot of black pepper and mushrooms and put that on top of steak. It's like a cracked pepper mushroom sauce. A white sauce is a blank canvas. Feel free to experiment with it to your heart's desire. Okay, so pasta has 24 seconds on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to let that finish. We're going to dump out the pasta into the strainer, and that'll give us some extra space to work on our white sauce. And then we'll go from there. Any questions? I know people type them out as they go, and that's perfectly fine. Any questions while I'm waiting for just this little 30-second pot switch out? Feel free to type them into the comments, and I'll answer them as I see them. Now, we're going to keep this pot, because this is the pot we're going to recombine everything into for the final assembled dish. So we are just going to keep this pot kind of hanging out on the side here while we don't need it. And it's on top of my cutting board so I'm not burning my surfaces. I cut it out. You just cut around it and you just cut it out for the chicken tenderloins. You just if the tendon's still on there and it's being a pain in the neck, you just cut it out carefully and just discard it. Maybe in one of these next upcoming videos I'll use chicken tenderloins so I can demonstrate that. But for now, you'll just have to go off of the description. Okay. So you're just going to grab a medium sauce pot, okay? And you're going to put it on low heat. I forgot to mention, this also includes butter in the beginning, so you need butter. So, remember, your average stick of butter
already has the measurements labeled out for you, so you don't really have to think too hard about it. But we want 2 tablespoons of butter. And that's going to go directly into the pot on low heat. Now the reason you don't want to go too much higher than low heat in this initial step while we're melting this butter is we want to melt this butter. We do not want to brown this butter. Oh god, that all cycled so fast I couldn't see your question. Hold on one second. I've heard that the key to a smooth white sauce is room temp milk cream. Is that your preference? Room temperature butter, if I had remembered to take it out at the beginning of this, probably does make it a little bit easier. Letting the milk or the cream be up in temp a little bit helps as well. But in all honesty, I have found that the actual... I use a metal whisk all the time. That actually doesn't bother me at all. No, I have found that actually the trick to a truly smooth white sauce is actually just making sure that you add the flour slowly. You don't add it all at once, you add it in small bits, whisking as you go. And then I've just found that aggressive whisking, after all of the items are combined, does more to give me a smooth white sauce than anything else. So don't forget, we're also cooking chicken. So just while you're doing other things and waiting for that butter to melt in the pot, make sure you don't forget things like, we've got chicken cooking here. And I'm just going to rotate the chicken around a little bit, because the grill is hottest in the middle. Notice I'm not really flipping them. I'm just rotating. Yeah, I use metal whisks. If I also have a Teflon coated whisk, so I use both. I'm going to use my Teflon whisk just because it's convenient, but a metal whisk is perfectly fine. Almost there. I'll give you guys a bird's eye view of what that looks like.
So again, we're looking for this to melt, but we're not trying to really cook the butter down. We just want it liquefied. If you're in a rush doing something like this, feel free to nuke the butter for about 5 to 10 seconds, depending on if it's room temperature or cold butter. That'll help soften it up to make this process a little bit faster. So hitting it with the whisk, just moving it around, helps promote that little bit of butter that's left melting, because it just keeps it in contact with the hot bottom of the pan. And there it goes. So, I'm going to show you, this is what it should look like prior to adding any flour. Just like that.
Does browning the butter ruin the sauce? Depends on if you like, it's a different flavor. It is a very different flavor. It doesn't strictly ruin it, but it's no longer a true white sauce anymore at that point. Brown butter is a distinct flavor. I love it with vegetables, but if you're trying to make something like an Alfredo or a cheese sauce or something, it's not the ideal preparation. If ruin the sauce is the subjective, it depends on if you like brown butter recipes. In terms of is it going to be the Alfredo that you're trying to make anymore? No, it is not. So if you inadvertently brown the butter because you forgot about it while you were messing with the chicken or chasing toddlers or anything like that, dump it out, clean out the pot, start again. You haven't added any flour yet. You're only down 2 tablespoons of butter. Who cares? Start over. It's perfectly fine to start over sometimes. Just gotta keep an eye on that chicken. Now, if you're wondering why I flipped that again, it's because I noticed that the ones in the middle were cooking faster, and that side, I could smell it was starting to get kind of done. So I wanted to make sure that I was not overcooking the ones that have been sitting in the middle, since the heat on that grill plate is concentrated more towards the middle than it is the outside. So we use 2 tablespoons of butter, which means we're going to use 2 tablespoons of flour. Now, if you have a tablespoon measure, go ahead and use it. I'm just going to use a big tablespoon. And this is the tricky part. You're going to want to add the flour slowly, just a little bit at a time. Whisk until you don't see any little clumps left. And you're going to keep doing this. And this is the secret to that smooth white sauce. Just a little bit of flour at a time. If you add the flour all at once, it forms clumps. Yeah, you can absolutely do this with gluten-free flour. You can do it with white, what you call it, rice flour and the like. Sorry, I just washed that whisk and there's some water hiding inside the handle. It's weirding me out. Okay. So, 2nd tablespoon. Again, whisking as we go. So what we're making right now is called a roux for the most, but this is technically a roux. And what it is, it's really just a fat and a binder. And you can make these out of any fat and any binder. The consistency will differ depending on what you use. Okay. I'll show you guys what that looks like. Good. Chicken's almost done.
But see, nice and smooth. No clumps, nothing like that.
We're going to bust out a measuring cup. And we're going to use 1 cup of heavy cream. Now, here's the thing. If you make a white sauce enough times, you'll find that you don't really need to measure it anymore. You can eyeball the roughly equal parts butter and flour. And then for every 2 tablespoons of those, you want to use roughly a cup of liquid. So we're going to go with heavy cream because, again, I just don't care about my heart. Yeah, fuck it. What's it ever done for me? And again, we're going to add this slowly, whisking as we go. And there you have it. That is a white sauce. Now, as this cooks, it's going to continue to thicken. But rather than just become a white sauce, what we're going to do is we're going to add that Parmesan to it. We're going to start with about half the bag. If you're making a bigger batch, feel free to throw the whole bag in. I personally don't add nutmeg. I know plenty of people who do. Nutmeg, here's the thing. Spices and flavoring are all about what you like. I just don't like nutmeg. And it's just not my thing. Believe it or not, I'm not really a big fan of cinnamon either. I like cinnamon sugar, like sweet cinnamon, but just the actual nutmeg, cinnamon, most of those things. Actually, not my cup of tea. Okay. Now, from this point on, if to melt the cheese a little bit faster, you can increase the heat slightly. Like you can go from low to like medium low. Do not go all the way up to medium. I'll explain why. This is the same thing that happened in the same thing from the cheese soup recipe, if anyone remembers that. We're in the same scenario here. We have a fat, we have a binder, and we have them coming together to create a thickening agent that's going to keep this sauce from being runny. If we increase the heat too much, if we let this sauce actually come to a boil, it rips apart those chemical bonds. And what happens is the fats completely clump together and completely separate from the liquids, and it completely ruins your sauce. So don't go any higher than medium-low, and be fairly diligent about stirring. This is one area where it's okay to give it constant attention. Yup, sad broken sauce. Yeah, do not let it boil. It will break the sauce apart into its component parts, and once that happens, there's no salvaging it. You just have to do it again. let's go back to our chicken. So those are starting to look like grilled chicken, right? So we're going to cut into them. And there you go. White all the way through. Good. Excellent. Will the cheese make the sauce go stiff once it cools? Excellent question. So what it'll do is the cheese is absolutely going to act as a thickening agent. And if you cool it like to refrigerator temperature, yeah, it gets kind of stiff. But once you heat it back up to room temperature or serving temperature... Who's the black private dick? He's a sex machine. He gets all the... Hi, Eric. To answer the previous question, though, once you heat it back up to serving temperature, so that you can eat it, it turns right back into a thick liquid, but a sauce. It turns back into a sauce. But yes, in the fridge, it will kind of coalesce into basically a cheesy brick. There's nothing wrong with that. When reheating leftovers of this, though, you do want to observe the same rule about not boiling it, because if you, so this is the sort of thing that when you reheat it in the microwave, you want to do it in like 30-second increments and stir a lot in between, because if you don't, the sauce will boil, and it will still break apart, even as a leftover. So you can still get the sauce to separate at that point. So just be careful when you're reheating leftovers of this, because you can ruin the sauce by trying to nuke it all at once. And all I'm doing right now is I'm really just tearing this apart for addition to the pot, which we're going to do in a minute. Just keeping an eye on that sauce. Yeah, now this is way more chicken than I needed, but whatever, I'm going to have super chickeny pasta. It was on sale, damn it. So remember that pot that we started with that we cooked the pasta in? Well, it's all cooled down now. So what we're going to do is we're just going to shove the chicken right on into that pot. Get in there. Then we're going to take our pasta and that's going right in there too. I'm going to throw this in the microwave for 5 minutes. while we finish up our sauce. Now this is a good time to add any additional seasonings you want to add to your Alfredo. It's also a good time to decide if you feel that it's thick enough and whether or not it needs more cheese. For me, the answer is, does the sauce need more cheese? Is basically always yes. I'm also going to add some salt and pepper, just to balance out the flavors. Yeah, now this is the sauce is the most labor-intensive part of this because you can't really rush it. Like I said, if you boil it, you destroy it. You gotta basically let it come up to temperature on its own. The cheese will melt, you just gotta give it time. So don't get impatient with it and try to jack up the heat. You'll ruin the sauce. It's getting there. Can you make big batches of this and put it in jars for later use? Absolutely. Not only can you put it in jars for later use, but this is actually a sauce that freezes well. So you can make this in batches, put it in jars, and stick them in the freezer. If you put them in the freezer, they should keep for a couple of months in the freezer. They'll keep for about as long as heavy cream keeps in the fridge. So you'll get a couple of weeks, maybe 2-ish weeks out of it, 2-3 weeks in the fridge. And you can get a couple of months if you freeze it. Just remember, this was 1 cup of heavy cream, and it's an entire batch. I mean, this is going to be more than enough for that entire big pot. So just remember, if you're making this in large batches, just remember that even though it's only a cup of heavy cream, yeah, that's starting to thicken up quite a bit now. even though it's only just a cup of heavy cream, the cheese and everything, that volume does add. So there we go. Now we're starting to... So your Alfredo sauce should look something like this. This is on the thicker side. If you feel that your Alfredo is too thick, you just add a little bit more milk or cream to it, and that will thin it up. I'm going to go ahead and kill the heat there. Excellent. I like mine on the thick side. Oh, fuck, that's hot. Ah, fuck it. There's supposed to be a cut tab on that thing somewhere, but I couldn't find it. You do want to drain any excess water off of your vegetables, and then they go in the pot. And last but not least, our sauce. You can take your big spatula. Don't forget all that chicken. That way stuck on the bottom. And that's pretty much it, folks. Once this is thoroughly mixed, and there you have it. Chicken, broccoli, Alfredo. I have broccoli and cauliflower because that's what I happen to like. But you can always do what you like best. So that's the finished dish. You can go ahead and that can just be served immediately. It's best if served immediately so that the cheese doesn't have too much time to set. And that's it. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to shoot them to me on Facebook. I'm always happy to answer your cooking questions. As always, my video will eventually get archived and put up on YouTube for rewatching purposes. Because finding individual videos on Facebook is a pain in the ass. Alright, any last questions? And then I'm going to eat dinner, and that'll be it. So any final questions, go ahead, and I'll keep that open for questions for about another minute, and then that will be it. Light refraction to the ozone layer. That's why the sky is blue. But since no one has any cooking questions, I will call it here for tonight. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you guys roughly next week for yet another Cooking Time with Bill. Yay! All right, night, folks.